Have you ever felt like the world is just on the brink?
Yeah, that feeling.
That all the chaos, the confusion, the constant stream of headlines, it feels like signs of something deeper, something really historic unfolding.
Absolutely. A sense that things are fundamentally shifting.
Well, if you felt that, then welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into a really profound and honestly quite provocative text. It's called The Last Age, Lord Kalki Prophecy, and the Final War for Peace.
And it's quite a document.
It really is. Our mission here today is, well, to give you a clear path through what's a pretty complex and, the source argues, urgent topic. We've basically distilled pages of research, insights.
Trying to get to the core.
Exactly. And what we're going to unpack are the really bold claims within this document. It asserts we're living right now in the end times.
Yeah.
Specifically something called the Kali Yuga, often known as the Age of Darkness.
And not just that we're in it, but that a divine figure, Lord Kalki, hasn't just been foretold.
Right.
But has already arrived. That's a central claim.
It is.
Yeah.
So we'll look at its unique take on prophecies across multiple traditions and its powerful call to action for every single person.
But it's crucial to state upfront, isn't it?
Absolutely crucial. Our role here is to clarify the claims made within the source material itself. We're not here to endorse any particular viewpoint. We just want to understand what the text is actually saying, not advocate for it.
Right. The source kind of frames this whole exploration as a chance for you, the listener, to gain clarity on those widespread global anxieties we all feel. It tries to connect events that seem totally random, disparate world events into a much grander narrative. The idea is to empower you with knowledge to navigate these, well, uncertain times.
It really does offer potential aha moments for anyone curious about spiritual shifts, societal transformation, suggesting maybe these aren't just isolated blips, but part of a bigger cosmic picture unfolding.
Exactly, a framework, if you will.
So to really get our heads around the source's whole argument, we need to start with its foundation, this core assertion that the Kali Yuga isn't coming. It's now.
Right. Where do we begin with that?
Well, the source first introduces the concept of the Yuga cycle. This comes from Sanatana Dharma, which many people know as Hinduism. And this view of time, it's cyclical. It's really different from the linear Western idea, creation straight through to a single apocalypse.
Completely different lens. Instead of a straight line, think of a wheel, always turning, ushering in different ages, different qualities of existence.
Exactly. The source lays out 4 yugas in one huge cycle, a Mahayuga.
Yeah.
First, you have the Satya Yuga. That's the golden age, the age of truth.
Peak spirituality, basically.
Then comes the Treta Yuga, where things decline just a bit from perfection. After that, the Dwapara Yuga, marking further weakening spiritually and socially.
And finally,
the Kali Yuga, the 4th and final age in the cycle. And it's defined by a really significant decay. Morality, spirituality, truth itself, societal order, it all degrades. Dharma, the cosmic order, is said to be standing on just one leg.
a shadow of its former self.
And the source makes this really strong, direct statement. We are in the Kali Yuga, and not just anywhere in the cycle. We are near its end, at its darkest point, poised right before the reset, before the Satya Yuga is supposed to dawn again.
Wow. Okay, so right at the cusp.
That's the claim. And it's interesting, isn't it, how this feeling, this end-time feeling, seems to resonate across so many different spiritual traditions, even if they use different names.
Yeah, the source really explores that universality. It argues it's not just a Hindu concept.
Right. Like in Christian prophecies, it points to Jesus talking about this age versus the age to come. And Christian eschatology talks about tribulation, widespread apostasy, false prophets rising up.
And it cites specific texts like 2 Timothy, describing people becoming lovers of self, lovers of money, brutal, not loving good. The source presents these as direct descriptions of now.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop there.
No, this universality is key for the source. It points to Jewish tradition too, especially the Talmud, which talks about the Messiah arriving during a time of deep moral collapse, where deceit and oppression are rampant. And it specifically notes truth will be lacking.
Truth will be lacking.
Yeah.
That feels relevant.
Doesn't it? And similarly, Islamic hadith, the sayings attributed to Muhammad, describe end-time signs like fitna, which means widespread confusion, chaos, trials, alongside growing injustice and the reign of the Dajjal.
The deceiver figure.
Exactly. A great deceiver figure who comes before a period of renewal. So the source argues, whether you call it Kali Yuga in the East or the end times in the West, these traditions are essentially describing the same condition.
All pointing towards some kind of final reckoning. A confrontation followed by renewal.
That's the argument, that these ancient prophecies aren't just stories, they're direct descriptions of our present moment.
And the source isn't vague about it either. It gets into very specific symptoms from these ancient texts and claims they align perfectly with our modern world.
Right, it tries to make direct correlations.
Take moral and spiritual decay, for instance. It quotes the Srimad Bhagavatam saying, "Wealth alone will be considered the sign of a man's good birth, proper behavior, and fine qualities."
Wow.
Yeah. The fourth interprets that as our world today, where status, fame, money, influence, they completely overshadow actual virtue. It leads to this inverted morality where, as the source puts it, good is called evil and evil is celebrated as good, and corruption, just expect it.
Right.
Business as usual.
And the parallels it draws are pretty striking. It talks about confusion around genders and traditional roles, citing the Bhagavatam again. Men and women will live together merely because of superficial attraction. Success in business will depend on deceit. Womanliness and manliness will be measured by one's hairstyle.
Superficiality, ruling relationships, and identity.
That's how the source sees it. A dissolving of older distinctions, leading to transactional relationships, kids growing up disconnected, maybe more influenced by screens than tradition.
And what about power?
Big focus there too. Abuse of power, systemic corruption. It quotes the Bhagavatam saying, "Kings will become thieves, they will devour their subjects' wealth."
Which the source interprets
As political systems decaying into, well, spectacle, manipulation, leaders focused on exploitation, not service. And the result? Total erosion of public trust. Injustice becomes normalized.
It even connects this to the ecological crisis, right?
Absolutely. It references the Vishnu Purana stating, "The earth will be valued for its mineral wealth, not its sacredness."
Oof, that hits close to home.
Doesn't it? The source argues our exploitation of nature perfectly mirrors how we exploit each other, and things like climate change and mass extinction, even pandemics. It frames them not as random accidents, but as karma, the planet reacting to our spiritual blindness and greed.
And finally, it tackles religious hypocrisy head-on.
Yes, citing the Linga Purana, those who wear saffron robes will act like thieves. Ashes and beads will be worn as a disguise.
So institutions claiming to speak for God,
But actually doing, in the source's words, the devil's work. Fostering division, greed. While true, quiet holiness often goes completely unrecognized.
what's really striking here is how the source takes these, incredibly old prophecies and applies them with such pinpoint specificity to right now. It's suggesting these aren't just metaphors.
Yeah. No, it presents them as literal descriptions of our current state. The argument is that sages, prophets across different traditions, they foresaw this exact time, a time when humanity would stray so far from the divine that, well,
Only divine intervention could fix it.
that's the idea. It quotes Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita saying, "Whenever righteousness declines and unrighteousness rises, I manifest myself."
And Jesus' warning about nations rising against nations, false prophets.
In Matthew 24, yes. And Isaiah lamenting the earth mourning because they have transgressed the laws. Or Muhammad in Hadith predicting, "The hour will not come until ignorance becomes widespread."
The source sees these not as, doomsday rants.
No, more like accurate diagnoses of humanity forgetting God, forgetting our true selves. But always, always coupled with this promise of a redeemer, a divine intervention.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you, the listener, according to this text? The core assertion is that the Kali Yuga ends not with negotiation, but with confrontation.
A decisive moment.
Exactly.
Oh.
And it introduces Kalki as the divine figure who appears right at the peak of this age. He's described as the final avatar of Vishnu, also known as the rider on the white horse in some prophecies.
And his mission.
According to the source, Kalki destroys darkness. But not just with a physical sword, but with a word, with truth. His mission is to cut through illusions, dismantle corrupt systems, expose inner demons, basically to reset the world and make a clear separation between light and darkness.
Sounds intense.
It is. And the source stresses his coming is not automatic salvation. It is a test. Just like in every previous yuga, apparently not everyone will recognize him when he appears.
So it requires discernment.
Profoundly. And the source speaks directly to you, the listener, suggesting maybe your soul chose to be here at this pivotal time. And it presents a really stark choice. Essentially, sleep through the storm or awaken, join the Kalki Sena, this army of light it describes, and become a warrior for light.
Wow. Okay, that's a powerful framing.
It definitely sets the stage. So
Yeah.
moving into our next section, the source digs deeper into these end times. And it clarifies something important.
What's that?
It says end times is not about the end of the world, but the end of a worldview, a system, a consciousness, the death of illusion, the collapse of the false.
So it's about a transformation, not annihilation.
Precisely. And all the turmoil we see globally,
Mm.
the wars, the crises, the source frames these as foretold signals, warnings, confirmations, like the birth pangs of the next age, the Satya Yuga.
That distinction is quite important, isn't it? It shifts the perspective from pure doom to a difficult transition.
Right. And the source gets specific again. It interprets current global conflicts as direct prophetic fulfillment. It points to the war in Ukraine, the ongoing horror in Gaza and Israel, the conflicts simmering in Sudan, Ethiopia, West Africa, tensions around Taiwan, India, Pakistan.
Basically, the global hotspots we see in the news every day.
Exactly, as literal examples of what ancient texts called wars and rumors of war. It connects these to passages like Revelation talking about peace being taken from the earth, or the Mahabharata predicting an age where kings will war against kings.
And the source is saying, look, this isn't a metaphor. This is it. It's happening.
That's the assertion.
Hmm.
But it goes beyond just external conflict. The source talks about an inner rot that accompanies this global strife.
Which
The collapse of moral clarity, this pervasive moral relativism we see everywhere. The source argues that in our time, good will be seen as evil, and evil as good.
we hear echoes of that.
Definitely. And truth gets labeled hate speech, while obvious lies are protected as tolerance. It gives examples like gender and biology being declared fluid, the sexualization of children, the breakdown of traditional family structures, tradition itself being dismissed as oppression.
This connects back to those earlier symptoms.
It does. It mirrors Isaiah's lament, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, and the Bhagavatam's prediction that religion would become about show and profit rather than genuine virtue.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the source suggests this isn't just individual confusion, it's a kind of spiritual deception at scale.
How so?
It argues it's designed to distract people, to derail any genuine spiritual awakening. And a key marker of this, according to the source, is the rise of false prophets and spiritual manipulators.
The false teachers.
Exactly. It points to Jesus warning about many coming in his name and deceiving people, or the Bhagavatam predicting that men who are no better than animals would be revered in religious robes.
And it gives modern examples.
Yes, quite explicitly. Celebrity gurus focused on branding, mega pastors living in luxury, clerics inciting violence, even New Age influencers selling what it calls spiritual shortcuts without real substance.
Okay. Then it moves on to plagues and pandemic.
Right. It sees COVID-19 as a major warning shot, exposing vulnerabilities far beyond just physical health. It connects this to prophecies of widespread disease, strange plagues, the intense fear around health, and the huge debates we saw over medicine versus freedom.
Does it link this to specific prophecies?
Yes, Revelation's fourth horseman bringing plague, famine, and death, and also Hindu cosmology talking about diseases for which there is no cure. It also notes the growing mistrust in healers, science becoming politicized, and health itself turning into an ideological battlefield.
And the environment. The Earth's cry.
That's framed as cosmic karma. Natural disasters, the floods, the wildfires, the heat waves, the droughts, are seen as the Earth itself rebelling.
Reacting to our actions.
Precisely. It links this to Revelation's imagery. The sea turning to blood, the sun scorching, and the Vishnu Purana saying the Earth is no longer bearing the sins of man. It's portrayed as a living planet reacting to our collective ignorance and greed.
Then there's the financial system. The source says money is the new god of the Kali Yuga.
Yes, and its current instability is seen as a huge sign. Inflation, unsustainable debt, staggering inequality, banks failing.
All symptoms of a sick system.
According to the source, yes. And it finds the move towards digital control particularly alarming. Things like central bank digital currencies, CBDCs.
Which it sees as a tool for.
Total control. Alongside social credit systems like China's and the way physical cash and privacy seem to be vanishing.
And this connects to prophecy, too.
Directly. To Revelation's mark of the beast, without which you can't buy or sell, the source calls the emergence of these technologies eerily literal.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot. And it also touches on the decay of religious institutions.
Yes, arguing that while these false systems and teachers gain power, true spiritual integrity is decaying. It points to empty churches, temples acting like businesses, mosques sometimes becoming centers for radicalization, and young people leaving organized religion in droves.
Which aligns with prophecies of a great falling away.
Exactly. And the Puranas predicting that only the name of Dharma will remain without meaning. It highlights corruption within these institutions, abuse scandals, political entanglements as evidence that they often hinder, rather than help, genuine connection to the divine.
Then there's technology. The technological Tower of Babel, as the source calls it.
Right. It describes humanity increasingly worshiping AI over actual divine intelligence, seeking digital immortality through transhumanism, believing machines will somehow save us.
Playing God, essentially.
That's the framing. It connects us to predictions that knowledge will increase, but wisdom will vanish, and people becoming lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. Humanity trying to usurp the divine role, which the source suggests leads to destruction.
So tying this all together, the source talks about a unifying deception, right? Referencing figures like the Antichrist or the Dajjal.
Yes. The Christian Antichrist, a charismatic leader bringing false peace, and the Islamic Dajjal, the false messiah, the great deceiver. In Hindu terms, it's a kind of collective delusion.
And the source makes a controversial claim here.
It does. It posits that this Dajjal isn't just a future figure, but is already here. Not necessarily as one person, but as an energy embedded in every system that actively opposes truth.
But amidst all this darkness, there's a glimmer of light.
Yes, absolutely. In stark contrast, the source highlights a growing light, a global spiritual awakening. People rejecting old lies, genuinely seeking divine truth, craving unity, peace, purpose.
And this awakening is linked to Kalki.
Directly, the source says, "This is Kalki stirring within souls. His return is not just external, it is internal." It mentions the prophecies of Kalki riding the white horse, restoring Dharma, yes, but crucially, also awakening hearts, revealing himself to those with eyes to see.
So the takeaway here, the core insight the source wants us to grasp, is that these aren't random, isolated crises.
Not at all. They're interconnected, they were foretold, and they're happening now. And this reality, the source argues, forces a fundamental choice on everyone.
A choice between denial and recognition, fear and faith, confusion and clarity.
Precisely. That's the crossroads it presents.
Okay. Moving forward, the source talks about this deep, almost universal longing for divine intervention.
Yeah, this ache across cultures, across religions, for justice, for balance to be restored.
It gives examples, right? The Christian grandmother praying for Jesus, the rabbi awaiting the Mashiach, the Shia cleric for the Mahdi, the Hindu yogi for Kalki, the Buddhist monk for Maitreya.
All these different figures, but a similar yearning.
And the source insists these aren't just separate myths. It calls them cultural echoes of the same cosmic truth.
It really tries to weave them together. It goes into the specifics of each tradition's end-time expectations.
Highlighting the common thread.
Exactly. A final redeemer figure appears amidst chaos, saves the righteous, destroys evil, and kicks off a new, better age.
So for Judaism, it's the Mashiach.
A human descendant of King David, he rebuilds the temple, gathers the exiles, brings peace, rules with Torah justice. Importantly, not divine in the Christian sense, but God's anointed human leader.
And the source notes the historical Jewish rejection of Jesus was because he didn't fit that specific political national mold.
Right. Then for Christianity, it's the second coming of Christ. Jesus returns physically, defeats the Antichrist, judges the world, establishes a 1,000-year reign of peace, the millennium, and brings in the full kingdom of God.
And the source emphasizes this is expected literally, not just metaphorically.
Very much so. Then in Islam, you have two figures often mentioned together, the Mahdi.
The hidden imam.
Often, yes. From Muhammad's lineage, who leads the Muslim world, establishes Sharia law globally. And alongside him, Isa, that's Jesus, returns.
But with a different role than in Christianity.
Yes. In Islamic belief, Jesus returns to defeat the Dajjal, correct Christians about his nature, denying his divinity, break the cross, kill the pig, abolish the jizya tax, and essentially help establish Islamic rule.
And the source points out Islam's denial of Jesus' divinity and its view of other figures like Kalki as false.
It does. Then for Hinduism, it's the Kalki avatar we mentioned. Vishnu's 10th incarnation, appearing at the end of the Kali Yuga.
Riding the white horse. Sword.
Yes. Destroying adharma, unrighteousness, ending the Dark Age, and starting the Satya Yuga, the Age of Truth. A bringer of Dharma restoration through decisive, sometimes forceful, action.
And Buddhism.
The Maitreya Buddha. A future Buddha who appears when Gautama Buddha's teachings are largely forgotten. He rediscovers the path, teaches the pure Dharma again, and brings enlightenment to many. A revelation specifically suited for the time he appears.
So the source lays out all these different traditions.
And then argues that now is unique because all the signs have arrived. All these different groups, Jews, Christians, Shia Muslims, Hindus, even New Age seekers are anticipating their respective saviors now, simultaneously.
And the source's big reveal, it's secret.
Is that they're all waiting for the same being? It claims the Messiah of the Jews, the Christ of the Christians, the Mahdi of the Muslims, and the Kalki of the Hindus, they are one and the same being.
Wow.
Yeah. It states, God did not create multiple truths. He created one truth, spoken in many languages.
So the source is basically proposing this radical unity behind all these prophecies, identifying Kalki as the central figure fulfilling them all. That is incredibly bold.
Extremely. It asserts Kalki is not a myth. He is not future tense. He is already here.
And it describes him as a continuation.
Yes, of previous divine descents, like Rama establishing law, Krishna guiding the righteous, Buddha restoring compassion. But Kalki comes, the source says, not only with teachings, but with judgment, with truth sharper than swords, and crucially with a divine plan, the Kalkiist Manifesto.
Human, yet divine.
That's the description. Born human, but carrying the divine consciousness of Vishnu. A soul that's been here before, many times. Here now to awaken souls, defeat delusion, start the new cycle.
Okay, but this raises a huge question the source tackles. If this figure is here, why isn't it obvious? Why is recognition so hard?
And the source argues it's precisely because the divine disrupts the status quo. It offends egos, threatens power structures built on lies.
It points to history, right? Prophets being rejected.
Consistently. Jewish priests rejecting Jesus, Brahmins mocking Buddha, even Arjuna doubting Krishna initially. The pattern, the source argues, is rejection first.
And it predicts Kalki will be resisted for the same reasons. He won't conform.
Exactly. He will not wear the right robes. He will not use the approved vocabulary. He speaks truth without compromise. So resistance will come from many corners.
From Muslims expecting the Dajjal.
From Christians and Jews with fixed ideas of their savior.
Even from Hindus expecting maybe just miracles, not a challenging message or a revolution.
That's what the source suggests. The resistance itself is part of the prophecy, in a way.
This leads into that Quranic puzzle idea again, about the Dajjal.
Right. Islamic tradition describes the Dajjal, the false messiah, appearing in turmoil, having amazing powers, claiming divinity, leading many astray before being defeated.
But the source asks, what if this is a distortion?
Exactly. What if this figure is a distortion of Kalki? It points out that the Dajjal's description, appearing in crisis, claiming divine authority, attracting followers, confronting leaders, changing the world, actually sounds a lot like a redeemer figure in other traditions.
The great inversion idea.
Yes, a satanic sleight of hand, the source calls it, where the true savior is preemptively labeled as the ultimate evil. This is really pivotal to the source's argument about a deliberate misdirection within Islamic prophecy. It forces you, the reader or listener, to really question deeply held narratives.
So the source is suggesting a major theological reframing, that Islam's structure was somehow designed to oppose this true divine light by inverting the prophecies.
That's the core of its argument regarding Islam. It claims Islam inverted the story because it emerged later in the Kali Yuga and its theology developed in the 7th century. The source characterizes Islam's historical voice as one of conquest, not liberation, law, not grace, submission, not realization.
And therefore, it brands the true avatar, Kalki, as a threat, because Islam's structure doesn't allow for another divine appearance after Muhammad.
That's the source's controversial assertion, that Islam cannot allow God to appear again in that way. And this ties directly into the introduction of the Kalkiist Manifesto.
Kalki's plan.
Yes, described as a detailed spiritual political roadmap to renew the world, covering both inner transformation and dismantling corrupt systems, and alongside it, the Kalki Sena.
The army of light.
An army of spiritually awakened warriors from everywhere, committed to truth, transformation, compassion. But crucially, the source clarifies this Sena does not fight with guns. It fights with truth-telling, radical clarity, non-cooperation with evil, spiritual discipline, and inner alchemy.
It's fascinating how it pulls all these threads together into not just prophecy, but a plan for action. But yeah, touching on specific religions like this definitely brings us to very sensitive ground.
Extremely sensitive.
Which is why we absolutely have to stress again. We're reporting only on the claims made within this specific source material. We are not endorsing these views. Our aim is just to understand the book's perspective on Islam's role.
Yes. The source explicitly calls Islam a spiritual foil to the coming light, a religion that supposedly warns against the true Redeemer, labeling him the greatest deceiver. We're just explaining that claim.
Okay, so revisiting the Dajjal figure from Islamic Hadith appears in turmoil, amazing powers, claims divinity, leads many astray, killed by Jesus and Monty.
The source reiterates its argument. The description of the Dajjal sounds remarkably like messianic figures elsewhere riding a white beast or equivalent, divine authority attracting crowds, confronting injustice.
Not a portrait of a deceiver. It is the universal image of a redeemer. And that is the great inversion. That's the source's punchline.
That's its core assertion on this point.
Then it looks at Islam's own saviors, the Mahdi and Isa, Jesus. The Mahdi leading the Muslim world, establishing global Sharia. Isa returning to defeat Dajjal.
And the source interprets this vision critically. It calls it an Islamic conquest of the world, not by truth, but by force, a denial of every other religious tradition, and essentially the killing of the true light misbranded as darkness. It calls this specific Islamic end-time scenario a shadow prophecy.
And it connects this back to Islam's origins, arguing it inverted the story because it emerged later in the Yuga cycle when clarity was declining.
Yes, claiming its 7th century theology reflected conquest and law over liberation and grace, and that it preemptively branded the true avatar as a threat to protect its own finality.
The source then goes into historical claims about Islam's spread.
It does, stating explicitly that Islam spread through the sword after Muhammad's death. It describes patterns of subjugation, the fall of empires like Persia, pushing back Christians, and specifically mentions 800 years of Islamic invasions in India, detailing temple destruction, forced conversions, slavery.
And the convert, pay jizya or die formula.
It cites that formula, describes the enforcement of Sharia, building mosques on other sacred sites, rewriting history, labeling it all ideological colonization and spiritual tyranny.
It also critiques specific Islamic laws.
Yes, focusing on the punishment for apostasy, leaving Islam, which it states is death. It mentions the concept of kafirs, non-Muslims, being seen as inferior, and blasphemy laws enforced with violence.
And it contrasts this sharply
with Jesus teaching love your enemies, Buddha saying hatred doesn't cease by hatred, Krishna offering redemption even to sinners. The source concludes that in Islam, as presented in these laws, truth is not discovered, it is imposed, and disagreement is death-worthy. This is the antithesis of spiritual awakening.
These are definitely very strong claims from the source. It also mentions specific modern geopolitical beliefs.
Yes.
Like Ghazwa-e-Hind.
Yes. It describes this as a belief held by some South Asian Muslims, especially in Pakistan, about a final conquest of India needed to bring about Islamic victory. It cites a hadith about conquering India and Allah forgiving the conqueror's sins, claiming this is taught in madrasas and cited by militant groups. The source calls it prophecy soaked in blood.
And Iran.
It asserts Iran openly threatens Israel's annihilation, believing global chaos hastens the Mahdi's arrival. The source's interpretation is stark. The more blood, the closer redemption. Again, these are the source's specific interpretations of these geopolitical narratives.
But then crucially, the source adds a nuance about ordinary Muslims.
Yes, this is very important. It explicitly states, most Muslims are not evil. They are not jihadis. They are victims of deception, not authors of it. It acknowledges many pray, seek peace, love their families, and are actually waking up, looking beyond the structures of their religion for deeper spiritual connection.
So it sees them as souls worth reaching.
Souls worth fighting for, it says. Not with weapons, but with truth. It urges true seekers everywhere to distinguish truth from falsehood. And it even issues a direct, challenging call to the Muslim reader,
asking them to consider if the Dajjal they fear is actually their liberator, if they've been deceived by the script, not the savior.
Exactly. An invitation to question, explore, break free, and connect with what the source calls the eternal light of Sanatana Dharma.
It's a challenging section, no doubt, but it shows how the source tries to frame even this divisive topic within a message of spiritual liberation, asking for a radical reinterpretation. And it concludes this part by stating Kalki's role
is to cut through the spell of Islam with the sword of clarity. To liberate the masses, expose the deception, honor the pure within Islam, but ultimately dismantle the structure it sees as false.
So the final war it talks about is primarily defined as a war of truth against confusion. Kalki as a liberator from inversion, not a conqueror of people.
That's the clear distinction the source makes. It's an ideological and spiritual battle, first and foremost.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly and talk about the source's idea of peace It's not what most people think of, is it?
Not at all. It challenges the common view of peace as just, the absence of violence or just coexisting even with things that are fundamentally untrue.
So what is real peace, according to this source?
It's defined as the fruit of truth. But here's the twist in the Kali Yuga, that truth can actually be dangerous because truth agitates, it provokes, it shatters illusions.
So real peace isn't necessarily comfortable. It requires honesty, grounding, courage.
Profoundly so, not just getting along on the surface. And this leads to the idea of clarity being absolutely essential.
Not just helpful, but essential.
A non-negotiable necessity, the source insists. In an age drowning in deception and relativism, clarity is presented as a lifeline. It cuts through propaganda, helps distinguish truth from lies, protects the innocent, and aligns you with Dharma, with cosmic order.
Tell me about it.
Even your best intentions might end up serving evil, the source warns. It breaks clarity down into 3 layers.
Okay, what are they?
First, doctrinal clarity. Understanding which teachings truly reflect divine reality versus those born of ego, fear, or just plain distortion. Second, moral clarity. Knowing right from wrong based on eternal Dharma, not just shifting public opinion or consensus.
And third?
Prophetic clarity. Being able to see the times for what they really are and recognizing the signs, including the source claims, recognizing Kalki's arrival.
It's fascinating how it insists clarity isn't just intellectual. It's a spiritual prerequisite for any meaningful action.
Absolutely foundational. But seeing the truth isn't enough.
Right. The source demands courage next.
Yes. The courage to actually speak the truth you see, to live it, and if necessary, to defend it.
Even if it costs you. Lose friends, face slander, be misunderstood.
Or even have to walk alone if necessary. The source is blunt. Truth is not a popularity contest. Kalki's path, it says, won't be cheered by the crowds, at least not at first.
It quotes Krishna telling Arjuna, "Do not yield to cowardice, rise up."
Exactly. Kalki calls the brave those who refuse to let the idea of peace become just surrender to lies.
This ties into its critique of modern love, doesn't it? The idea of let everyone believe what they want, don't judge.
It calls those mantras of confusion, not compassion. True love, the source argues, has to be rooted in truth. It must be willing to confront, capable of discipline, even prepared to offend if needed to uphold truth.
Like a parent needing to correct a child, or a doctor needing to give a difficult diagnosis.
Precisely. It says, a soul who fears speaking truth does not love the world. Which really makes you think, doesn't it? How do you balance compassion with holding firmly to what you see as true, especially on tough subjects?
It's a huge challenge. And the source applies this directly to engaging with Muslims, viewing them as victims of a theology they did not choose.
Right. The stated goal is liberation, not humiliation, to help them see that their theology calls light darkness, expose flaws in historical narratives, and offer an invitation to eternal Dharma, a living path.
But the method is key. Firmness without hatred.
Hate the system, love the soul, reject the lie, not the heart entrapped by it, while also acknowledging the real dangers for ex-Muslims and emphasizing the need for refuge and safety.
And this relates to preaching without compromise. Rejecting the urge to water things down.
Yes. The source criticizes the modern tendency to just focus on commonalities, avoid controversial topics, use only gentle metaphors. It claims Kalki's way is direct, fiery, non-flattering, aimed purely at liberation.
So a Kalkiist preacher wouldn't shy away from difficult truths or seek approval.
No! They speak the truth in love, expose the inversions, and call for genuine repentance and change.
But all this outward action has to start. Where?
Within. Peace begins within. Mastering the battlefield of your own mind is the absolute prerequisite.
Those inner enemies again. Lust, anger, greed, delusion, pride, jealousy.
Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. The source is clear. Unless you conquer these, your outer peace efforts will be poisoned by ego.
So practices like daily meditation, self-discipline, service, detachment, truthful speech, they're not optional extras.
They're essential training. The source even says peace is a frequency. Your inner stillness radiates outwards.
And the Kalki Sena, this peace army, is composed of people doing this inner work.
That's the vision, a new kind of humanity, clarity carriers, multinational, multi-ethnic, spiritually disciplined, morally courageous, politically aware, economically just, philosophically grounded.
Yogis, monks, politicians, soldiers, artists, builders.
Everyone playing their part. It is the army of the future, the source says. It does not destroy, it redeems, but it will not tolerate evil.
But this path, this true peace, it comes at a cost.
A potentially huge cost, according to the source. Comfort, social standing, career, maybe family support, even physical safety.
You may be called extremist. You may be exiled. You may be targeted.
It doesn't sugarcoat it. It quotes Krishna again. Better to die in battle for Dharma than live in shame. And it draws that sharp line.
Between false prophets pursuing peace without truth, fanatics pursuing truth without peace.
And the true avatars in training who unite both peace and truth.
And this whole path isn't just about surviving the end times. It's about actively building the next age, Satya Yuga.
Exactly. That's the blueprint. A vision where war is forgotten, religion gives way to direct realization, nations unite, hierarchy dissolves into harmony, and the Kalkiist Manifesto acts as a kind of spiritual constitution.
And the source gives practical daily steps.
Yes, that daily Kalki discipline, morning clarity, wake early, meditate, read the manifesto, identify one truth to speak. Daily courage, speak out, protect the vulnerable, reject lies. Evening reflection, examine your actions, forgive, offer it all up to the divine.
It's really striking how it moves from grand prophecy to such specific personal daily actions. It's not just philosophy, it's a lived practice.
A complete blueprint for embodying the path.
Now, the source presents this idea of peace, but then it immediately pivots to say, sometimes peace fails.
Right. It introduces what it calls a hard truth of spiritual realism. While we all want peace, peace is not guaranteed. Peace must be earned, defended, and when necessary, fought for.
And Kalki establishes peace after war, not before, like Rama and Krishna.
That's the parallel it draws. And it states very clearly, to refuse war when peace is rejected is not noble, it is cowardice.
Okay, this raises the question, how can war be divine? What's the ethical framework here?
The source provides a very specific one. It distinguishes ego-driven conflict from what it calls a necessary sacred defense of cosmic order, of Dharma. It points to how past yugas ended.
Where conflict?
Yeah.
Treta Yuga ending with Rama destroying Ravana to Apara Yuga with the Mahabharata War.
Exactly. The ending of a yuga is not a gentle fade into light. It is a violent shattering of illusion. So the argument is the end of Kali Yuga, when darkness is supposedly at its peak and evil no longer hides, won't be any different.
But there's a prerequisite. Peace must be attempted first.
Absolutely. A spiritual law, the source calls it. It uses Krishna's example before the Mahabharata, offering Duryodhana peace, asking only for 5 villages. When that was flatly refused, war became unavoidable, a dharmic necessity.
And Kalki follows the same strategy. Offer peace first.
Yes. Through truth, through awakening, through transformation. But the source warns, if these profound peace offerings are rejected by systems committed to death and domination, then he will unsheath the sword.
What are the signs, according to the source, that peace has truly failed? When is that line crossed?
It lists several indicators. When truth is outlawed, when evil becomes systemic, when the innocent are slaughtered with impunity, when prayer is punished, when all dialogues end in mockery or deceit, when tyrants no longer pretend to care, and when deception is the air itself.
At that point.
Continuing to beg for peace is to submit to evil. That's the source's stark conclusion.
So this just war, or Dharma Yuga, is driven by necessity, not rage.
Correct. It cites the Gita again, Krishna telling Arjuna to fight as his sacred duty, reminding him the soul is eternal. It's presented as transcendent action, not nihilistic violence.
And the ideal Dharma warrior.
Does not hate his enemy, weeps before and after battle, understanding the tragedy, avoids war until absolutely forced, and fights only for balance, not for ego or territory.
And Kalki's war specifically.
Is described as being not for territory, it is for truth. Its targets are ideologies, corrupt institutions, lies, systems that enslave souls. It will answer violence with violence only if nations or movements stand against divine order.
The source then identifies specific geopolitical front lines where it believes this war might manifest.
Yes, and again, we need to stress this is the source's specific interpretation of current events through its prophetic lens. What stands out to you about these predictions?
Well, they're incredibly specific and tied directly into current global tensions, India being called the final bastion.
Right. Birthplace of Sanatana Dharma, seen as threatened by radical Islam, mentioning Ghazwa Hind again, Marxist globalist ideologies, consumerism. Kalki supposedly calls India to rise, reclaim its Dharma, purify its politics, and prepare for defense.
And Israel as the flashpoint.
Yes. The source claims Jewish people might be shocked to find their Messiah is Kalki, but that Israel's survival is essential. Given Iran's threats and radical Islam's view of Israel, the source even predicts Kalki might forge an India-Israel alliance, a spiritual and geopolitical axis of Dharma.
And Iran and Pakistan are labeled shadow thrones.
Seen as the epicenter of the anti-Dharma prophecy, Iran's apocalyptic beliefs, Pakistan's dream of conquering India under Islamic prophecy, both nuclear powers ideologically driven according to the source. If dialogue fails, Kalki's forces must be ready to meet them.
It's a very particular and intense rereading of geopolitics. And the warfare itself isn't just conventional.
No, Kalki's war is described as one of energy, words, and consciousness, alongside potential physical conflict. The sword of speech spreads truth, undermines lies. The shield of technology uses AI, data, networks to counter disinformation, organize, awaken.
And the fire of spirit.
Kalki's very presence, his divine energy, is said to shake corrupt structures, trigger confessions, awaken the dormant, paralyze the corrupt, a return of cosmic balance through spiritual force.
But preparation is key. Inner readiness
Absolutely precedes outer action. Kalki warriors must resolve their fear of death, train body and mind, study Dharma deeply, eliminate those inner enemies, practice stillness.
And there are specific rules of engagement.
Yes, quite strict ones. Do not kill innocents, do not desecrate sacred sites, offer surrender before destruction. Anyone accepting Dharma is spared. And crucially, do not fight for vengeance, only for rectification.
So this final battle, is it literal, metaphorical, both?
The source says it's both. Literal in that real battles may unfold, but spiritual in that the primary war is internal and metaphysical. Kalki confronts false prophets, lying institutions, harmful ideologies, mass manipulation. The battlefield is earth. The prize is the human soul.
And the ultimate purpose of all this, even the potential war,
is the dawn of the Satya Yuga. The end of religion as control, the rise of universal Dharma, technology aligned with ethics, East meeting West, science meeting spirit, a civilization finally governed by truth.
So the source presents this intense argument that even war, under very specific divine conditions and for the highest purpose, can be a necessary, albeit tragic, step towards radical global transformation.
A challenging concept, definitely, but central to the source's narrative arc.
Now, let's dig into why the source predicts Kalki will face significant resistance. It seems paradoxical, doesn't it? If God returns, shouldn't everyone rejoice?
You'd think so, but the source argues history tells us otherwise. It points to a consistent spiritual pattern. The divine arrival is rejected first, often violently.
Why? Because light exposes the darkness.
Exactly. Light exposes rot, it shatters comfortable illusions, it fundamentally offends identities built on lies. That's why Kalki will be resisted, the source claims, not just by the wicked, but by the religious, the pious, the learned, the proud.
It meticulously builds this case, using historical examples, right? Showing rejection is the pattern, not the exception.
Yes. Rama was banished, they feared his control. Krishna was hated by corrupt kings, called a manipulator. Buddha was ridiculed by the Brahmin establishment, labeled a heretic. Jesus was crucified by the religious authorities, he threatened their power. Even Muhammad was exiled by his own tribe initially.
So the source is saying, look, this is what happens, don't be surprised.
Precisely. It's setting the expectation.
And why specifically will the religious reject Kalki, according to this text?
Several key reasons are given. First, he will not conform to tradition. He won't wear the expected robes, use the approved jargon, submit to existing religious hierarchies, temples, mosques, churches. He won't seek validation from priests, imams, rabbis, or pundits.
So they'll label him
Heretic, blasphemer, antichrist, Daj, false avatar, all the labels used throughout history against disruptive spiritual figures.
Second reason.
He will offend the powerful because he'll speak for the poor, the forgotten. He'll threaten revenue streams based on religion. He'll expose corruption within institutions. He'll undermine their theological control, as the source puts it. They will hate him because he cannot be bought.
And third, this one's interesting, he will fulfill prophecy, just not their narrow version of it.
Exactly. He won't fit the superficial, localized expectations. Maybe not the Jewish king focused only on rebuilding the temple, or the Christian Jesus descending literally from clouds in the expected way, or the Muslim Isa focused solely on destroying the Dajjal, or the Hindu warrior arriving from Shambhala exactly as imagined. The essence might be fulfilled, the source argues, but people fixated on the form will miss it.
It's fascinating how the source argues that the very things designed to help recognize the divine religious institutions, fixed prophetic interpretations, can actually become the biggest roadblocks.
A profound irony it highlights, and it digs into the psychological roots too. ego and fear. Well, ego and identity. Accepting Kalki means surrendering control, admitting your religion, your status, your understanding was maybe incomplete or flawed. This is unbearable for the ego, the source says. It triggers questions like, why didn't he come through my religion?
And the fear.
Fear of change. Kalki represents radical existential transformation. The old, familiar world, even if flawed, must die for the new to be born. This terrifies most people. They prefer the comfort of illusion over the chaos of awakening.
The source then gets specific about institutional resistance from established religions.
Yes, and again, these are the source's specific, often harsh claims. It predicts Hindu temples and gurus, corrupted by caste, money, empty ritualism, will denounce Kalki as adharmic, against Dharma, and try to excommunicate him.
The Vatican and Christian churches.
It claims Kalki won't fit conventional Christianity, won't endorse rigid creeds or bureaucracies, won't support exclusive claims to salvation. He'll speak the true, radical teachings of Christ, unfiltered. So many pastors and hierarchies will inevitably label him the Antichrist.
Islamic leaders, the ulama and imams.
The source predicts fierce resistance here. Kalki will reject what it calls the Quran's distortions, the Hadith's violence, and declare Muhammad wasn't God's final word. It anticipates fatwas being issued, threats against his life, followers being hunted.
And rabbis and the Jewish establishment.
It suggests many expect a Messiah solely for Israel. Kalki, speaking for all humanity, affirming the core of Torah but not necessarily political Zionism, will likely be dismissed as a false Messiah again.
So resistance from almost every established religious structure.
That's the prediction.
Yeah.
And from the secular world, too.
Wow.
Atheists will dismiss him, scientists will demand impossible proof, journalists will paint him as a cult leader, politicians will fear his influence, because Kalki cannot be classified by their standards, doesn't come from Harvard or the UN, doesn't quote peer-reviewed studies, doesn't flatter liberal or conservative values. He'll be marginalized.
The source even posits kind of coordinated, almost metaphysical resistance.
Yes, it talks about an anti-divine energy. Call it Satan, Asura, Maya, the collective ego having dominion in the Kali Yuga, influencing media, education, government, finance, even religion itself.
And Kalki threatens this entire structure.
Fundamentally, so the resistance will be coordinated, funded, militarized, global. Expect false narratives, twisted words, attacks on followers, a concerted effort to shut the light down.
Does the source connect this predicted rejection to Scripture itself?
Absolutely. It cites the Bible, Isaiah saying he was despised and rejected by men, John saying he came to his own and his own did not receive him.
And the Gita.
Krishna saying, whenever righteousness declines, I appear, yet fools deride me when I descend in human form. Even Islamic hadith, the source argues, by predicting the Dajjal, who it equates with the falsely labeled Kalki, will be followed by many, implies most won't recognize the true divine arrival.
So Kalki's arrival acts as a kind of sorting mechanism.
A test, the separation of the wheat and the chaff. Those who love truth more than their traditions or identities will recognize him. Those clinging to ego or structure will reject him.
The humble will be lifted. The proud will fall.
The seekers will find, the gatekeepers will be cast down. Every soul faces a choice.
What will this rejection look like in practice? And how will Kalki respond, according to the source?
Rejection could take many forms: media attacks, censorship, legal persecution, religious condemnation, even violence. The source says the world will crucify him again, if not physically, then culturally.
And Kalki's response?
He won't plead or beg for recognition. He'll continue speaking truth, healing the sincere, calling the broken, unmasking the false. He might weep for the world's blindness, but will not compromise. The resistance itself is seen as part of the necessary process. Only when the old has rejected him can the new be born.
This outline suggests a pretty profound challenge for you, the listener, if you resonate with this material. The source is essentially preparing you for potential backlash, maybe even from people you'd expect to be allies. It's like an invitation to develop a really strong inner compass.
Definitely. Trusting your own connection to truth becomes paramount.
Okay, this leads us to another major and potentially controversial section. The source's claim about the future of religions themselves. It talks about the death of false religions.
Yes. It starts by describing our current age as one of unprecedented religious pluralism, but also deep confusion.
How so?
Religions promise peace, but often deliver division. We hear, all paths are equal, yet there's no agreement on fundamental truth. institutions meant to be holy, are riddled with scandal. It calls this the fragmentation of humanity's relationship with the divine.
And the source makes a stark prediction.
A very uncomfortable truth, as it calls it, that many dominant religions were actually born during the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness, and therefore they will collapse as this age ends.
And only one thing will remain.
Only what it calls Sanatana Dharma, the eternal law or eternal order.
Okay, we need to unpack this. What exactly is Sanatana Dharma, according to the source? It's not just Hinduism, right?
No, the source is very clear on that. It calls Hinduism, a later colonial mislabeling the word Hindu, doesn't appear in the ancient scriptures themselves.
So what does Sanatana Dharma mean?
Sanatana means eternal, timeless. Dharma means cosmic order, truth, right conduct, the inherent nature of things, the path. So, eternal dharma or eternal order.
And it's not a religion in the way we usually think of it.
Not according to the source. It's described more as a metaphysical framework, a moral compass, a way of life, a science of consciousness, a guide to the inner world.
And crucially, it's based on realization, not just belief.
Yes. The questions aren't just what do you believe, but what have you experienced? What have you become? It's presented as the mother river from which all genuine spiritual teachings flow.
Okay, this distinction between false religions born in darkness and this eternal order, Sanatana Dharma, is absolutely crucial to the source's whole argument.
It's a major pivot point. It claims many dominant religions, specifically naming Islam, institutionalized Christianity, modern rabbinic Judaism, institutional Buddhism, were either born in the Kali Yuga or the later declining stages of the previous Dwapara Yuga when spiritual clarity was already fading.
So while they might contain some truth,
they were inevitably shaped by the darkness of the age they arose in. Things like political consolidation, rigid patriarchal hierarchies, suppression of the feminine, exclusionary doctrines, we alone are right, ritual becoming more important than experience, legalism, and often violent expansion.
And the source sees these not as signs of spiritual clarity,
but as symptoms of decline, products of the Kali Yuga itself.
And this is why these false religions, as the source calls them, cannot survive the transition into the next age, the Satya Yuga.
That's the argument. The Satya Yuga, the age of truth, fundamentally demands clarity. It cannot be built on contradictions, coercion, belief without direct experience, or dogma without inner transformation.
So religions that preach things like eternal hell, deny reincarnation, justify killing in God's name, or claim exclusive access to God.
According to the source, they simply cannot survive the shift. The very frequencies will shift in the next age. Fear will dissolve, inner knowing will replace outer rituals, direct experience will supersede priestly intermediaries. Religions based on fear, guilt, and control will naturally disintegrate, like ice under the rising sun.
How does the source envision this death of religions? It's not necessarily a physical destruction.
No, it seems to be more of a disintegration. A falling away due to a fundamental shift in human consciousness, where doctrines based on coercion, exclusion, and contradiction just lose their power. They no longer resonate.
The source then offers specific critiques of major religions viewed through this lens.
Yes, and again, these are pointed critiques presented by the source. It calls Islam the religion of submission that must submit to truth. It argues Islam emerged with military conquest and legal absolutism, teaching that God has no form, contrary to Hindu views. Muhammad is the final prophet. The Quran is perfect and unchallengeable. Apostates must die, and non-Muslims must convert, submit, or pay a special tax. Jizya. The source deems these tenets incompatible with the pluralism, awakening, and equality required for Satya Yuga. It states, Kalki will break the spell of Islamic supremacy.
And Christianity.
It frames it as having gone from Christ to control. It acknowledges Jesus as a divine messenger teaching love, inner purity, forgiveness, nonviolence, the kingdom within, but argues that institutional Christianity became Romanized, fixated on sin and guilt, overly focused on Jesus' death rather than his life teachings, politically entangled with empire, and hostile to concepts like reincarnation or deep mysticism. It critiques the claims that Jesus is the only way, the Bible the final infallible word, and non-Christians condemned. Kalki, the source claims, will affirm the true Christ consciousness but expose institutional Christianity as a distortion.
Judaism.
Titled The Waiting Must End. It acknowledges Judaism carried deep mystical truths, Kabbalah, the Shekinah, the covenant idea, but argues it became too inward-looking, overly focused on law rather than love, historically resistant to new revelation, like Jesus, and overly attached to ethnic identity. The source claims Kalki won't flatter what it calls Jewish exceptionalism, but will fulfill the spirit of the ancient covenant in a universal way, inviting participation in the global Satya Yuga. Only the essence will survive. The source argues Buddha never intended a religion, but offered a path: silence, meditation, detachment, compassion. Institutional Buddhism, however, often became ritualistic, sectarian, sometimes downplayed or denied the divine, and denied the concept of an eternal soul, Atman. Kalki claims will restore the essence of Buddha's path and integrate it back into the broader Sanatana Dharma.
And even New Age spirituality gets a critique.
Yes, subtitled Light Without Depth. It acknowledges many people fled rigid traditional religions for the New Age crystals, channeling, law of attraction, etc., but it critiques much of it as ego repackaged as enlightenment, offering comfort without commitment, a kind of spiritual buffet, eclecticism without grounding. Kalki, it says, will offer a disciplined path, not feel-good shortcuts. Satya Yuga requires depth and commitment.
Wow. The source really doesn't pull any punches there. It offers very specific, sometimes quite harsh, critiques of how it believes these major world religions have strayed from original universal truth.
It's definitely a core part of its argument for why only Sanatana Dharma endures.
And why does it claim Sanatana Dharma endures? What makes it different in the source's view?
In contrast to the critiques, it presents Sanatana Dharma as affirming the eternal soul, Atman, teaching reincarnation, celebrating the divine in countless forms and formless, integrating masculine and feminine principles, honoring all beings, offering many diverse paths to realization, not just one, balancing action, devotion, knowledge, and meditation. It sees no inherent conflict between science and spirit, and crucially, it wasn't founded by a single historical figure, but is based on eternal principles rediscovered by sages throughout time.
So it survives not by conquering other religions,
But because, the source argues, it outlasts them by truth. Its framework is inherently more expansive and adaptable to higher states of consciousness.
and the source predicts the end of religion itself to be replaced
By living Dharma. Kalki doesn't start a new religion, the source claims, but ends the age of religion itself. What remains isn't church, temple, or mosque in the old sense, but awakened individuals and sacred communities practicing Dharma directly.
No forced conversion, no final prophet, no fear-based morality, no monopoly on truth.
Exactly. Instead, the focus shifts to practices like satsang, communion and truth, seva, selfless service, dhyana, meditation, yajna, seeing life as sacrifice offering, bhakti, devotion, swadhyaya, self-study, and awakening shakti, divine power. It's described as the religion beyond religion.
And the old structures: mosques, churches, synagogues, guru systems, rigid dogmatic texts.
They'll either empty out or become museums, the source predicts. Studied critically, perhaps, but no longer holding primary spiritual authority. The Bhagavad Gita, however, is predicted to rise as a universal scripture for this new age.
But there's a warning here too, right? Not everything calling itself Dharma is authentic.
A crucial warning. The source cautions against false Sanatana Dharma, things like caste-based oppression carried out in its name, religious chauvinism, empty ritualism without realization, political exploitation using Dharma concepts. Kalki, it says, will purge these distortions too.
So true Sanatana Dharma, as Kalki represents it, is
Egalitarian, experiential, radiant, global, revolutionary. It's described as truth in motion.
what's the role of the seeker in all this? How does one prepare for this shift?
The source advises detaching from narrow tribal or religious identities, studying world scriptures comparatively, feeling their vibration, prioritizing direct experience, practicing silence, truth, compassion, serving humanity, reading the Kalkiist Manifesto, and fundamentally letting go of the need to be right about past beliefs.
And what replaces religion in practical terms?
Living temples of consciousness, sacred relationships, communal learning focused on transformation, planetary alignment, energy mastery, inner realization. It's envisioned as post-religious but profoundly post-spiritual. It should be profoundly spiritual.
That's a radical vision for the future of spirituality. It really challenges you, the listener, to look beyond current structures and seek something deeper, more universal.
A call to direct experience over inherited dogma.
So we arrive at the core message. Lord God is here, as the source titles it. Kalki has returned, bringing a roadmap.
Yes, reiterating that central claim, Lord Kalki is not coming, he has come. But, importantly, not in the way people might have expected.
No grand entrance from the clouds, no traditional religious garb, not confined to temples.
Exactly. He is already walking the earth, already speaking to those who will listen. His mission: to restore Dharma, reforge the earth, and awaken the next stage of civilization.
And he brings a plan, a roadmap.
Yes, a roadmap not to heaven but to a transformed earth.
And this roadmap isn't about starting a new religion.
No, the source is adamant. Religions were for the Kali Yuga. This new incarnation establishes Dharma, not another religion.
What's the key difference according to the source?
Religion often says, obey our rules, beliefs to be saved. It tends to divide people into insiders and outsiders. Dharma, in contrast, says, awaken to what is real. It unites, it honors the divine spark within every single soul.
So Kalki comes to ignite fires.
To turn every home into an ashram, every citizen into a seer, and every nation into a temple of truth. It's about activating inner potential universally.
Okay, let's unpack this roadmap. The source builds it on 4 pillars.
Yes. It's presented as a blueprint for a transformed earth built on 1. Inner realization, 2. Social justice, 3. Planetary harmony, and 4. Global governance by Dharma.
And these are just fuzzy ideals.
No. The source presents them as pragmatic prophecies, a workable plan for the Satya Yuga. This roadmap is incredibly ambitious, isn't it? It's a complete reimagining of society.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's look at pillar 1, inner realization for all.
The foundation. No outer peace without inner peace. It envisions a civilization of meditation.
Meaning?
Every human learns basic practices. Meditation, breath control, pranayama, mantra, mental discipline, compassion, and action. The future is powered by consciousness, not just external tech.
And education gets a complete overhaul.
A revolution. Children are taught first who they are, Atman, the eternal self, not ego. They learn how to still the mind, master desires, think critically and spiritually. Schools become temples of self-realization.
Technology plays a role too.
Yes, but harnessed for awakening. AI, neurofeedback, even VR could be merged with spiritual growth tools, helping people awaken, not just escape reality.
Okay, pillar 2, social justice as spiritual necessity.
This is crucial. The source states bluntly, poverty is a dharma against dharma. Injustice is not just a political issue, it is a spiritual emergency.
So practical steps.
A universal basic standard of living. Every human, just by being born, has a right to nutritious food, clean water, shelter, healthcare, education, internet access. Not charity, it is civilizational dharma.
And the economy.
Radical reformation. An end to debt slavery, resource hoarding, market manipulation, corporate exploitation. A new economy based on ethical entrepreneurship, local community strength, cooperative models, and strict ecological accountability.
Dismantling tyrannies.
Yes, an end to inherited hierarchies like casteism, dissolving patriarchy, outlawing economic apartheid, but the source stresses this happens not through revenge, but through systems change.
It's interesting how it directly links social justice to spiritual principles. It's not just a secular ideal here.
No, it's framed as an absolute spiritual necessity for a dharmic world.
Pillar 3, planetary harmony.
Cannot build peace on a planet that is dying, the source states. Earth is a sacred being.
So ecology becomes worship.
In essence, rivers cleaned and perhaps even granted legal personhood, forests rewilded, sacred groves restored, industrial pollution treated as a serious crime. To poison the earth is to blaspheme the mother.
Agriculture changes too.
Completely. Back to local, regenerative, organic methods, protection for sacred animals like cows, encouragement of plant-based diets, no genetic tampering. AI might help distribute food efficiently. Food seen as medicine, soil as sacred.
Energy.
Clean and eventually free. Harnessing solar, wind, geothermal, perhaps even tapping into what physicists call quantum vacuum potential or zero-point energy. Energy becomes abundant and nonviolent.
Finally, pillar 4, global governance by Dharma.
The vision is planetary. One species, borders are illusions.
A reformed UN.
Replaced or reborn as a council of Dharma. Representing populations directly, not just nation-states. Guided by truth, transparency, transformation. Voting power might balance population, economic contribution, and ethical standing.
But still respecting local sovereignty.
Yes, decentralized sovereignty. Local cultures are respected, but they must align with a higher spiritual constitution, the Kalkiist framework of rights and duties. No nation can oppress minorities, wage war for profit, censor truth, or deny basic needs under this system.
And the military.
Repurposed. Weapons aren't needed when peace is genuine. Budgets shift to infrastructure, education. Armies retrained to protect life, disaster relief. The war industry becomes a peace industry.
Underpinning all this is the Kalkiist Manifesto.
Yes, described as not just a book, it is the new constitution of humanity.
What's in it?
Principles of Dharma governance, 12 rights of the human soul, 4 duties of a conscious citizen, 7 pillars of post-religious civilization, a global council charter, an interspiritual education framework, a planetary citizenship declaration. It's comprehensive.
No bullets, no borders, only truth-based structure.
That's the tagline.
And the Kalki Sena's role is to implement this.
They are the catalysts, a global force of teachers, tech experts, economists, educators, artists, farmers, healers, builders. Their job is to translate the manifesto into practical action, build local models of Satya Yuga, defend the awakening, and train the next generation.
The source even offers a timeline, a strategic vision.
It does, quite specifically. Years 1 to 3. Awakening Kalki recognized. Manifesto spreads. Prototypes emerge. Years 4-7. Resistance old powers attack. Sena resists with truth and non-cooperation. System cracks appear.
Years 8-12.
Collapse major old structures. Religions, banks, governments fail. Kalkiist systems replace them. Years 13-20. Consolidation Satya Yuga education becomes universal. AI helps coordinate globally. Resource equity is achieved.
And beyond. Years 21-33.
Radiance Earth becomes a spiritual hub. Disease or ignorance vanish. Even interdimensional contact might resume according to the source's vision.
That timeline is incredibly specific. It really paints a picture, suggesting we're living through the very first phase right now.
If you accept the source's premise, yes, it places you directly within the unfolding plan.
And the individual's role is crucial. We're not just bystanders.
You are not a bystander. The roadmap is not separate from you. You are a node of Kalki's plan. That's the message.
So what should individuals do?
Read the manifesto, transform your own home into a micro-Satya Yuga, speak truth courageously, serve without ego, train the young, radiate love as a political act. The source states, your enlightenment is geopolitical service.
Opposition is expected, but will ultimately fail.
Yes. Mockery, bans, censorship, fear-mongering, even assassination attempts are predicted against Kalki and the movement. But they will fail, the source claims, because people are waking up, the old systems are irrevocably broken, the underlying energy has shifted, and ultimately because Lord walks among us, truth cannot be killed, it multiplies.
And the ultimate destiny of Earth
Is to become a temple, a training ground for souls, the cradle of a galactic consciousness. Kalki's roadmap aims to return Earth to this divine trajectory. Humanity becomes conscious caretakers, bridge builders, gardeners of the planet and consciousness.
The invitation is clear. Participate. Become hands and feet of the Lord.
Start circles, translate the manifesto, build communities, run for office with dharmic principles, create art that reflects truth, mentor youth, meditate deeply, love fiercely, act bravely. This is your purpose, the source declares.
Which brings us to the final, powerful section. There are only two sides now. Join the Kalki Sena.
A very direct and challenging message here, stripping away any possibility of neutrality.
The time for neutrality is over, the source asserts. This is the end of the Kali Yuga, the final act, the ultimate war between light and darkness.
And the choice is stark.
Every soul must now choose because there are only two sides left. Those with Dharma, the Lord, light, versus those aligned with confusion, fear, false religion, powerless, destruction.
No middle ground, no third option, no room left for spiritual spectatorship. It explicitly references Arjuna's lesson. Inaction is action. Silence in the face of evil is collusion.
So what exactly is the Kalki Sena again? It's not a traditional army.
Not at all. No weapons, no uniforms, no flags, not bound by nations. It's described as a spiritual movement, a global force, and a sacred brotherhood and sisterhood of souls.
An army of light.
Whose members fight by speaking truth, refusing to serve deceptive systems, living with intense integrity and clarity, awakening others, preparing for both inner and outer struggle, and actively building the Satya Yuga.
The Kalki Sena does not kill. It does not terrorize, but it is absolutely uncompromising in its commitment to truth.
That's the core definition.
And why must sides be taken now? Why the urgency?
Because the world itself is polarizing rapidly, the source argues. Truth versus propaganda, sovereignty versus surveillance, holistic health versus fragmented systems, wisdom versus blind technocracy, God versus the state, peace versus engineered chaos.
The middle ground is disappearing.
It's collapsing. You can't just claim to be spiritual, not religious, and ignore dharma, or political, but not ideological, and remain unaligned. Neutrality is becoming impossible.
Who joins this Sena? What are the criteria?
Not external things like caste, gender, religion of birth, wealth, or appearance. It's about inner qualities.
Spiritual and moral criteria.
Yes. Do you seek truth even when it's costly? Are you willing to abandon false loyalties to old ideas, institutions, even relationships? Do you feel a divine fire, a pull towards this mission? Have you had dreams, intuitions, callings related to Kalki? Are you ready to stand firm against ridicule?
No applications, no interviews, only your decision.
That's what it says. It's an inner alignment.
And there's an oath.
An oath taken not to a person, but to the Lord, to Dharma, and to your own deepest soul. I pledge my mind to truth. I pledge my voice to awakening. I pledge my body to Dharma. I pledge my life to Kalki's work. I will not betray the light, even in my darkest hour.
And this oath is considered spiritually binding.
Yes, that emphasis is fascinating. It implies a profound inner commitment that literally reorients your soul, aligning you with this divine current, bringing synchronicities, but also trials designed for growth and increased grace.
But the first battle isn't external.
Never. The first war is inside your own being, against those 6 inner enemies: lust, anger, greed, delusion, pride, jealousy.
A Kalki warrior purifies the inner battlefield first.
Through those daily disciplines: meditation, dhyana, maybe fasting, upavasa, study, swadhyaya, breath control, pranayama, truthful speech, satya, non-attachment, vairagya. Until you master yourself, you cannot serve Dharma outwardly.
And within the Sena, people have different roles. It's decentralized.
Yes, reflecting different natural inclinations or dharmas. The awakeners, jnanas, sharing truth, exposing lies, guiding with clarity. The protectors, kshatriyas, defending Dharma, protecting communities, preparing for breakdown, spiritual warriors.
The builders, Vaishyas.
Creating the new systems, economy, education, tech. Funding the awakening, organizing the infrastructure for Satya Yuga. And the servers, shudras. Feeding, caring, protecting the vulnerable, healing, supporting the warriors.
All roles equal and sacred. A reformed Varna system without the rigid hierarchy.
That's the vision, based on innate qualities and service, not birth.
What are the practical steps the source suggests for joining?
First, make the declaration. Say it aloud. I join the Kalki Sena. I serve Lord Kalki. I surrender to Dharma. The source claims you will feel a shift.
Decay.
Begin daily sadhana. That consistent practice, early rising, meditation on Kalki, chanting Om Kalki Namaha, studying the manifesto, doing daily acts of truth and service. Join or start a circle. Meet with others in homes, outdoors, digitally. For study, strategy, mutual support, service projects, even security planning. Start small, even just 3 people. Reject all allegiances to adharma. This might mean leaving institutions, jobs, relationships, political parties that are fundamentally aligned with deception or harm. Liberation is the precondition for leadership.
Are there codes of conduct?
Yes. 0 violence without just cause. Only self-defense or dharma yuddha. 0 tolerance for lies. Truth is the weapon. Discipline over emotion. Strategic, calm action. And loyalty to the Lord alone, above nation, ideology, even flawed teachers.
What's the mission? And what about persecution?
The mission is huge. Awaken thousands, build the new economy, raise dharmic children, protect communities, speak against tyranny, build Satya Yuga models, prepare for potential conflict, pray for peace. You are a node of divine intervention.
And persecution?
Is presented as inevitable. Mockery, exile, legal threats, danger, economic pressure. The source quotes the Beatitude. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of Dharma. It frames joining not as a lifestyle choice, but as a vow of eternal allegiance.
But the source ends this section with certainty.
Yeah.
The Kalki Sena will prevail.
Absolutely. It will grow, deepen, evolve, and ultimately triumph because it fights with cosmic alignment, because the Lord fights through it. The armies of Dharma are forming, the lies are collapsing, the enemy is confused. Kalki walks the earth.
And the final word to the listener.
You have been trained across lifetimes for this. You are not here by accident. You chose this incarnation. Now fulfill your destiny.
Wow. That really is a powerful call to action. It frames your entire existence right now as a conscious choice with massive spiritual weight. It's basically asking you, the listener, to stand now or fall forever.
A very potent conclusion.
We've covered an incredible amount of ground today, from really trying to understand this concept of the Kali Yuga and seeing its signs everywhere, according to the source, to exploring how global prophecies seem to converge on this figure, Lord Kalki.
We navigated the source's very controversial claims about other religions and their roles in these end times.
And then we looked at this incredibly detailed roadmap for a whole new age, the Satya Yuga, which culminates in that powerful call to join the Kalki Sena. It's clear the source offers not just a diagnosis of crisis, but what it presents as a complete vision for transformation and a clear purpose for individuals within that grand plan.
And the source ends by emphasizing that choice. The final hour has come, it says. No more speculation, no neutrality, no hesitation. It even lays out these 4 modes of spiritual response.
Right, the willful blind, the debate-fueled doubtful, the awakened witness, or the Kalkiist warrior, inviting you, the listener, to kind of see where you might fall in that spectrum.
And the message is incredibly stark. Your eternal path is shaped by how you respond now.
So we want to leave you with a final thought, something to mull over that builds on this material. If, as this source profoundly suggests, the return of God isn't some distant future event, but a present reality, an awakening happening right now within souls, then what small act of truth without compromise can you commit to today that might just echo into the Satya Yuga of tomorrow?
Bring it right back to personal action, here and now.